All right, so picture this. Ancient Alexandria, bustling with intellectual energy, right? Marble streets, grand structures everywhere. And among it all, imagine a young woman, her cloak billowing as she walks with
A
purpose.
striking image, for sure.
It is, and that's Hypatia. Not just some figure from the past, but a brilliant mathematician and philosopher whose story, even today, sparks debate and grabs your attention.
It really does.
So today we're diving deep, really deep, into the enduring legacy of Hypatia of Alexandria.
It makes you wonder, right? Why does this woman who lived centuries ago still fascinate us so much? I mean, what is it about her story?
Exactly. This deep dive is all about exploring those narratives, those stories that capture the power of her life, the inspiration she brings. And we're going to be looking at accounts that really highlight her achievements, her intellectual achievements, which were remarkable, and the incredible challenges she faced in her pursuit of knowledge.
Definitely. And I think it's worth noting that many of the sources really lean into that inspirational aspect of her story.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, they present her as someone who excelled in fields dominated by men, and crucially, she fostered this vibrant intellectual community around her.
Right, right. And we want to understand why her story has this incredible staying power, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is it about her journey that connects with people across so many centuries?
I think that's the core of what we're trying to unpack here, that resonance. What can we learn from Hypatia about the importance of reason, the courage it takes to pursue knowledge, and about that very human drive to just, explore the world? And these are themes that I think we could agree, they're still so relevant today.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. So let's rewind a bit, back to her early life.
Yeah.
The narratives paint Hypatia as someone who, even from a young age, stood out.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Her father, Theon, is depicted as this figure who recognized her potential early on, extraordinary potential, and he made a conscious decision to provide her with a top-notch education, one that really broke with the norms, the expectations for women at the time. So instead of, the typical domestic skills, she was immersed in geometry, astronomy, you name it.
Wow. Imagine a young woman in ancient Alexandria, right, surrounded by diagrams of conic sections, those shapes you get, slicing a cone, circles, ellipses, instead of, I don't know, weaving or something.
Right.
It's a huge departure.
It is. It's this intentional cultivation of her intellect, which is fascinating. And the sources really emphasize Theon not just as a father, but as a mentor, a dedicated mentor who nurtured her gifts.
Yeah.
This deliberate choice in a society where things were so different for women, it's really key to understanding what she accomplished later on.
It really is. It wasn't by chance, It was focused learning, a supportive environment, at least at first.
Right, exactly. And she wasn't just absorbing knowledge passively, she actively engaged with it, collaborating with her father on these foundational texts like Euclid's Elements, Ptolemy's astronomical works.
Huge stuff.
Huge. And her contributions, specifically her annotations, are described as bridges between antiquity and the future. I mean, how powerful is that? She wasn't just preserving knowledge, she was shaping how it would be understood, transmitted,
It's a crucial point. That's right. Her work involved critical thinking, interpretation.
Yeah.
She was building upon existing knowledge. Think about it. She was contributing to these fields, math and astronomy, as they were understood back then. Which leads to a question posed in one of the narratives. Why does a mind like hers terrify those who cling rigidly to established beliefs, to dogma, without ever questioning them?
That inherent challenge, right? That reason, that spirit of inquiry poses to inflexible beliefs. It's like the source frames truth as a mirror, and Hypatia is holding it up, and maybe society was afraid of what it might see.
Interesting.
By her 30s, her own school had become this incredible intellectual center, this sanctuary for seekers, as one account calls it. And what's remarkable is it wasn't exclusive, Pagans, Christians, Jews, they all gathered there, united by this pursuit of knowledge.
Which, for that era, is pretty extraordinary, wouldn't you say?
It really is.
Alexandria at that time was complex, volatile. The fact that Hypatia's school transcended religious boundaries, it speaks volumes about her authority, the respect she commanded.
Definitely.
She was teaching math, astronomy, philosophy, disciplines that encourage questioning. One source puts it beautifully. Mathematics is the language the universe whispers. Listen closely, and you'll hear its song. And that really captures, I think, the sense of wonder she must have instilled in her students.
Absolutely. But as the narrative highlights, this environment of intellectual freedom, It was under threat.
Oh.
Alexandria is described as a tinderbox with all these religious tensions rising. The figure of Bishop Cyril is introduced, someone actively working to suppress dissenting voices. And Hypatia, this pagan intellectual who welcomed Christians into her academic circle, she became a target.
I mean, that seems almost paradoxical, doesn't it? Someone dedicated to learning and understanding becoming a figure of danger.
It does. If we look at the bigger picture, what's fascinating is this clash between different ways of understanding the world.
Right.
Hypatia represented this long tradition of rational inquiry, philosophical exploration rooted in Greek thought.
Hmm.
And then you have the emerging Christian leadership, some of whom they viewed this tradition with suspicion.
Yeah.
Perhaps they saw it as a challenge to their authority, their theological authority.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, why was she seen as such a significant threat?
Well, the source suggests it was precisely because she stood at this intersection of faith and reason. Demonstrating through her life, her school, that wisdom wasn't confined to any one belief system.
Yeah.
Her existence, the community she fostered, it challenged those rigid boundaries that some were trying to impose.
Okay, I see.
And this tension, tragically, it escalated.
It did. The narrative doesn't shy away from the brutality of her death in March of 415 AD. The mob dragging her from her chariot. The violence. It's a stark image, meant to evoke a powerful response. And the question posed at that moment, how do you kill an idea, really gets to the heart of her legacy.
Right, because the answer is you can't. The source emphasizes that even in death, Hypatia's influence lived on through her students, through people like Synesius of Cyrene, who spoke of her divine spirit, and Orestes, the Roman prefect who opposed Cyril. So their physical presence was gone, but the impact of her ideas, the inspiration, those couldn't be extinguished.
That's so interesting, this idea of intellectual lineage, Her students, many of whom went on to hold positions of influence, they carried her teachings forward, her spirit of inquiry. It really highlights the power of mentorship, the way ideas spread through these networks of thinkers and learners. Even in such upheaval, the seeds she planted, they continue to grow.
And the source we've been looking at argues that Hypatia's murder was a turning point, a moment when Alexandria's intellectual vibrancy started to decline. It frames her death as this profound loss, not just of an individual, but of an era marked by a certain openness to intellectual exploration. It connects her story to the ongoing struggle for academic freedom, the importance of defending these spaces where ideas can be freely explored and debated.
It brings up this point about the delicate nature of intellectual environments.
Right.
The narrative suggests that fanaticism, the suppression of different voices, can have a real impact, a detrimental impact on a society's intellectual and cultural life. Hypatia becomes this symbol, a symbol of what's lost when reason and open inquiry are stifled.
Exactly, and that's why her story still resonates so strongly today.
Makes sense.
The source draws these parallels between her challenges and contemporary issues, It asks us, do we see Hypatia's ghost in the struggles of girls denied education? Do we hear echoes of her defiance when censorship tries to silence dissenting voices? It's connecting a historical tragedy to the challenges we face today.
That's powerful.
It is, and the narrative highlights her unwavering courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, it says. It's the decision that something else matters more. And for Hypatia, that something else was the pursuit of knowledge, the sharing of knowledge.
And this leads us to those powerful questions the source asks. What mirrors are you afraid to hold up? Whose voices are you silencing, even unintentionally? How will you fan the flames of curiosity in a world that sometimes seems to prefer darkness?
Wow, those are some really heavy questions.
They are.
They make you think about your own role in upholding truth, in encouraging different perspectives, and actively encouraging curiosity. The source concludes so beautifully. It suggests that even though there were attempts to erase her, Hypatia remains alive in every woman who dares to code, teach, or lead. In every mind that values evidence and critical thinking over just blindly accepting things.
I like that.
And the final message, it really ties everything together. This narrative suggests that Hypatia's ultimate act wasn't her death, but the fire she ignited through her life, through her work. And it challenges each of us, will we be a bystander or a spark?
Powerful question.
It is. It urges us to teach fiercely and question relentlessly, reminding us that ideas have this incredible power, this transformative power. It ends with this really profound thought. Ideas are immortal. And it encourages you, the listener, to channel Hypatia's unyielding spirit when you face your own challenges in the pursuit of knowledge. It reinforces this idea that even when we're up against it, facing adversity, we can choose to be a force for enlightenment, for reason.
So as you go about your day, take a moment to think about that image we started with. Hypatia, walking through ancient Alexandria. Think about her dedication to learning, her courage in the face of intolerance, and the lasting impact of her ideas, her life. Maybe, just maybe, her unyielding spirit can offer you a new perspective on your own challenges and remind you of how important it is to keep that flame of curiosity burning bright.